I'm gonna ask you to stay up here, and I'm gonna ask the other speakers also to come up here for question and answer.
All right. I have a question for Eric and Aditi. So, in my experience, decision trees are very unstable. What this means is that depending on how you partition between train and test your data, and same thing if you do cross validation, so the data that you train on changes affects a lot what tree you get. So, let's say I 5 times split between train and test, I may get 5 completely different trees. Did you notice that in your work? And if so, how do you deal with that in the sense that if what you're trying to do is understand, like, oh, who should I intervene on and whatnot, like every time you're going to get a different tree, which may yield different conclusions.
So yeah, when we did cross validation, we saw that we got different trees at every 5 4 it was. So we got 5 different trees throughout. But usually, while with CV, we just see that the accuracies are not varying much, and that says that even though towards the leaf nodes the features change, but the towards the root the features are still recurring. So that essentially means that those features are truly important in the sense. So that is how we concluded. We do not essentially combine the trees, but all those trees pointed towards the same direction in general.
Yeah, and just as sort of an add-on to it, so the piece that I made a big deal of at the end, that was actually the first two. So they're the ones at closest to the root. So your probability of disclosure was not approaching one, which is what it is way down at the where the leaves are. But it's these more robust features, but they're still getting us a really high probability of disclosure. So we thought, okay, these are the robust features, and it's this mutable thing that has a high impact. So this is really what we wanted to make a thing of. But it's true, you don't want your findings to be driven by noisy data.
I have a question for Christina. This is really important work, and I was wondering whether you have some insights on how some of the analysis you're doing can inform like interventions or detection. So it was clear that you're looking at like kind of using the data to understand the dynamics or maybe detect things, but what can we do with this?
Sure, actually, and we did the comparative analysis actually with some of the students from Emilia Ferrara between TikTok and Twitter, and you already see huge differences. There's a lot less harmful that we could find on TikTok. And why is that? Because they moderate, So even I think even like small interventions, like where you kind of create more friction to post something, even telling people to add maybe trigger warning or something like this, but create friction for posting harmful content, it will have downstream effects. It will compounding effects, will decrease overall content. So interventions are really important, and I don't think you have to do a lot. You can do very little to have big effect, in fact.
I also have a question for Christina. So I'm wondering, on your slide specifically where you were tracking the incidents over time, do you think that there's also an element of we've normalized some of these conditions that previously people didn't feel comfortable talking about? So the reason why there's a higher incidence is just people feel more comfortable sharing?
I mean, that's true, but in addition to people sharing, there's also, for example, sharing ED Twitter, SH Twitter, self-harm Twitter, eating disorder Twitter. There's also increased pain, and distress. People actually, treatment centers have been overwhelmed during the pandemic. There are a very long list. I mean, the number of kids who are ending their lives, choosing to end their lives, has been going up and up and up and up. And there's no it's now higher. The peak was actually in the 90s, my generation, Gen X, that was the peak of suicidality. And we have actually approached that, and there's still no saturation. It's going to increase still. So maybe stigma, how come maybe ease of use is actually causing more suicidality, but that's wrong. I mean, you should stop that.
For the sake of time, thank our speakers.